Good morning, one and all. The personality whom I have invited today on this online session of VS International College doesn't need any introduction. The most intellectual celebrity of the nation, with wonderful oratory skills, the Mahanayak of Nepalese film industry, I, Anamika Srivastava, welcome you on behalf of VS Education Foundation family to this online session of our college. You have touched countless lives in number of ways. You have inspired many, and I am no exception. The lesson I learned from you was a lesson of humbleness. Stay the way you are, because the virtue you possess is very, very rare to find these days, and that's what makes you different from the rest. The intention of calling you today on this online session of our college, the main aim was to make my students listen, to hear, and to learn from you and to get inspired by you. Because as we all know, the crisis we are going through, the pandemic that we are surviving is very disturbing. Especially our youths, they are clueless. They don't know what is in store for them. So guide them with your knowledge. Tell them how to cope up with this particular situation. So let's hear from you. What is your take on this particular issue of challenges and opportunities for youth in post-COVID society? So thank you so much for joining us today. Looking forward to listen to your views on this particular issue. And once again, welcome to this online session. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much for inviting me. It's a pleasure, and thank you for putting in some kind words. We are going through a very unusual time. We all know that, and this is just not based in a particular country or a particular society. This is happening universally, and every country is tackling this situation as best as they can. And unfortunately, I must say that the best of the countries, even the very highly developed countries, have not responded to this pandemic as well as we expected them to. So therefore, this pandemic is very unusual, and it has hampered all of us, our daily lives, our lifestyles. Everything has been put into halt. And now we have come to a situation where we are thinking that what is going to happen after this pandemic, because unlike any other situation, it's not that one fine day this will go away and the next day everything will be normal. This is not the case with this pandemic. So even if it is, ultimately, even if it goes, we'll have to approach it very gradually, and cautiously. So things are going to be a little different. So we all have to be aware of that. And that is the situation, because, life itself is beautiful, but sometimes living can be quite difficult. So these sort of things can happen while we're living, and we have to face this challenge as best as we can. But definitely after COVID-19, we may need to readjust ourselves in terms of our lifestyle, in terms of the way we interact, and even to extend the way we handle our profession might have to go through a slight change. And the idea is to be prepared for it, because sometimes in the world, these sort of things can happen. The world has gone through several big wars. It has gone through a lot of obstructions. But no matter what, things have ultimately taken its course, and things have ultimately come on its track. So we have to be very aware of this. We have to be strong, and we have to make up our mind and our mentality strong in order to face this challenge. But definitely there are going to be a few adjustments to be made. As it is, we are making few adjustments even now for the last 3-4 months. We have made a lot of adjustments in our life. Most of the younger generation probably haven't had experienced this at all. And if someone had told this about a year ago, that sometimes in the world something like this might happen, everything might get locked up, everything might be put into hold, and we will all be confined in the house. If something was told a year ago or 2 years ago, we would think that it's a fiction, but now that it has actually happened, we're facing it, and we have also coped with it for the last 3-4 months. But ultimately, this is going to leave some sort of repercussions, and the whole idea is to be prepared for it, not to expect, smooth sailing all the way, but to be prepared for it. We all have to be prepared for readjustments, I think.
My two students, Avinash, Parajali and Deeksha, they will be moderating the session. So they will be now over to you, Avinash.
Sorry to interrupt you, sir. This is just a quick reminder for all the attendees. If you have any questions, please feel free to list your names, and after Rajesh sir's session is over, we'll make sure you can ask your questions to Rajesh sir. And my humble request is please be on a context as much possible, right? Well, this session is all about the concept of post-COVID society and the role of youth, the challenges they might face in the coming days. So my question to you is, sir, we recently have a lot of issues about suicide in Nepal. I read somewhere in the news that around 1,248 individuals committed suicide during this lockdown phases. And within this time, there were many Bollywood actors who also committed suicide. In fact, two that I know of. And if we go back to history of Nepalese movie or entertainment industry, we see Alok Nembang committing suicide. Throughout the world, actors like Robin Williams, and then Guru Dutt, the legendary Guru Dutt, Sushant Singh Rajput, recently Jia Khan. So my question to you is, sir, what is happening during these times? I mean, people are always looking for name and fame, and after they achieve all these things, they suddenly commit suicide. So the youths would want to hear from you, as you represent a fraternity of entertainment business or acting. So youth would want to hear from you. What are your opinions about suicide? Why people commit suicide, and what would you suggest to people who are in need of help?
Well, suicide is it's an impulsive action which takes place in a very short period of time, but it can trigger that situation because of several reasons. There is not just one reason to it, and some of the cases that you have mentioned has happened during the pandemic, but it not necessarily it means that it happened because of the pandemic. It might just be a coincidence that a lot of the cases that you have mentioned. But suicidal situation occurs in a person usually with the person's own mentality and the kind of outlook that the person is going through about life, about himself, in relation to the society, in relation to the people that he is in contact with. It's kind of the mindset that he is going through at that phase. And also, it highly depends upon the person's own personality, the way the person thinks, the way the person observes himself or herself, vis-a-vis the society, vis-a-vis his profession, vis-a-vis the people that he or she comes into contact. So basically, it's all about the mind. That is one of the reasons why we always say that what comes in your mind is not under your control, but how you handle the thought that comes into your mind is within your control. So that is the most important thing, because in mind we might get all sorts of situations. Even the people who are healthy and hearty and have a very good outlook on life may get all sorts of negative thoughts in the mind. Especially in a pandemic like this, people might have all kind of thoughts coming into your mind. It doesn't mean that they are suicidal. It doesn't really mean that they are weak. But in the mind, all kind of thoughts can come in, and you have absolutely no control what kind of thoughts come into your mind. But what you are in control of is whether you want to implement those thoughts in your life or not, or whether you want to move on, or whether you want to replace that negative thought with positive thoughts. That is within your control. But unfortunately, some people are so heavily burdened by the thoughts that comes into their mind that they really cannot get away from it, and they get heavily influenced by the thoughts that is in their mind, and therefore, they move on to this drastic step in life. But what the normal people should realize and understand is that we all can get all kinds of thoughts into our head. All kinds of, we might get negative thoughts, we'll get bad thoughts, we'll get angry thoughts, hateful thoughts, thoughts that are harmful for the people around you. That is something that we cannot control. But like I said, what you can control is that whether you want to be channelized by those thoughts or you don't want to be channelized by those thoughts. Do you want to be influenced by the negative thoughts that come into your mind, or do you want to delete that negative thoughts and replace it with positive thoughts into your mind? So it is all about also your thought process and the kind of things that you put into your head and the kind of things that you get influenced by the things that comes into your head. So suicide is basically, sometimes it's very impulsive, because there are some people that I know who have attempted suicide and have failed and have lived. And at least I know one person who have told me that, oh, I will never do that again. After he went through and failed attempted suicide, and then he recovered, and now he has a normal life. And whenever I meet him, I ask him, why did you do that? And he said, it's an impulsive action, that happens within about 5 or 10 minutes. But now he says that, had I not been in that situation for 5 or 10 minutes, if I had some sort of exterior contacts, or some other people had intervened, or some other people had come and spoken to me, maybe I would have gone through that negative thoughts. But because the person was in isolation, and something that came into his mind, he was so heavily directed by it that within 5 or 10 minutes he took the action. But after he recovered, then he says that, oh, I will never do that again. It was such a mistake. So that is the kind of thing, when it when the situation of the people who commit suicide. It's usually when it happens within about 5 or 10 minutes when the thought comes into your head. But when that kind of a mood is overpowering them, if there is some sort of external intervention, if some people come in, or some people can, all of a sudden calls them or calls her, and they are able to pick up the phone, or someone enters the house and are able to speak to them, then that moment might pass, and that moment might even never come back again. So those are the things. But sometimes, in a pandemic like this, when people are isolated at home, confined to their own space, and they don't have so much of interaction or company around, and you get that extreme negative thoughts of bleakness, of not seeing any, future, or not seeing any fruitful friendships around you, or you are thinking that everybody is out there to harm you, whether it be socially or whether it be professionally, and then you sort of are isolated, and then you sort of can take this drastic situation. But if you have some sort of external intervention, but if you are a strong person, you don't even need to have an external intervention. You can have another intervention within your mind. You can overpower that negative thoughts with another part of you, which is the positive thought, and then say, no, this is not what I should be doing. So some people are strong enough to do that. Some people might even get this negative intentions of wanting to get rid of oneself, but then the other side of your mind sort of overpowers you and tells you that, no, I should not be doing this. I'm better than this. I should be stronger, or things will be fine. So sometimes one can even be one's own counselor if one is strong enough. So the idea is for for most of us, the lesson that we can take is that what comes into your mind, you have no control, but how you channelize the things that come into your mind is within your control. Whether you want to replace your negative thoughts with positive thoughts, or sometimes you might get this heavily influenced negative thought in your head, and then you become your own counselor, and then you overpower that with your positive thoughts. So it's all about a person's personality, a person's outlook. But my sincere saying in this is that one must be strong, because you see, nobody said life is going to be easy. Life is beautiful. I always tell my friend, life is a gift. Life is beautiful, but living is hard. Living is, you face a lot of challenges. Living has a lot of hurdles. So right from day one, you should be prepared for that. Your premise in life should be that life is difficult, life is going to be challenging, but I must overcome them and I must be strong. That should be your premise. It is also a very highly creative field, and as a human being, we're also very creative. But the role that a movie can play is that, sometimes a movie can play a role of inspiring its audience, can bring forth, some issues to the audience. So movies has several purposes. It has a purpose of entertaining. It has a purpose of educating. It has a purpose of motivating. It has a perfect purpose of people who watch the movie, they can sort of reflect on it, reflect from the issues that they have seen in the movies, reflect with the kind of creativity that they have seen in the movies. So movies are made with so many different intentions, and you cannot put all the movies in one basket. It's the same with the books. We cannot put all the books in one basket. Books are of so many different subjects, with so many different intention. People write books, and there are books of all kinds. There are highly motivating books, there are highly educative books, and highly entertaining books, and there are also rubbish books, and there are funny books, and there are light-hearted books. So movies are like that as well. A movie is just a creation of a person or a team of person, and they might create various subjects for various reason, for various kind of audience, and the purpose of cinema is also, we should not forget, is a commercial entity. Sometimes filmmaker will think that, oh, if I bring this issue or this kind of creation in the movie, then I will have more audience coming and seeing it, so I'll be able to make money. So there's a commercial aspect as well. So movie has several roles, and movies are of all kinds. There are good movies, there are bad movies, there are entertaining movies, there are funny movies, there are light-hearted movies, and there are some great movies, and great movies may not necessarily be great for everyone. You know, for example, if there's a highly educative or highly reflective movie, maybe everyone may not like it. Maybe everyone do not want to go there and see all this heavy material and want to think too much while watching a movie. Some people want to leave their brain behind and go and watch a movie just to be lighthearted and just to have a nice time. Other people go to the movie to be very inspired intellectually, inspired spiritually, uh, and they will go to see the movie by the intention of what am I going to get out of it, intellectually. How is it going to be helpful in my own life? Will this subject be helpful in my own life? And the movie makers also make it with various kind of minds. Some movie makers tackle a subject by saying, "Oh, I want to make this the reflective of our society, so that when audience come in and see it, they become reflective, they become motivated, they become intellectually inspired." And other people might say, "No, I want to make a movie where people will just go and have real fun for 2.5 hours. They don't need to think, they don't need to do this, and they will just take it as a sense of humor." But one thing for a fact is that, like for general audience, for most of the people, what they see in cinema, what they see in movie can also be an influencing factor. So sometimes the movie makers also need to be careful what kind of subject they put out, what kind of materials they're showing in cinema, or at least they have to be channelized in different ways, because when people see things, they can be influenced by it. Uh, they may want to imitate it in their own life, uh, while as doing it in cinema can be easy, but doing the same thing in your own life might be counterproductive. So there is that kind of responsibility, I think, in cinema, that one should always realize that cinema can influence society, cinema can motivate society. So you wouldn't want to influence them in a wrong way. You don't want to motivate them in a wrong way. You don't want to be directing them in a wrong way. So if movie makers have this kind of conscience, then they would take this very seriously about what they portray in their own films, because their films can influence the society. But otherwise, cinema is a creative field, and it can be made in so many different subjects for so many different reasons. And audience also go to movies for so many different reasons. Sometimes they go to a funny movie for one reason, and they go to another cinema for a totally different reason. Uh, so you cannot put all creative works and all movies in one basket. There will always be different kind of movies. There will always be movies made with different intentions, for different purposes, for different kind of target audiences. Uh, but overall, like I said, visual media is a very influencing media. So the movie makers should be aware of that, because we say seeing is believing. So a layperson, when they see something, they might believe it and might want to imbibe in their own life. So for that reason, I think the movie maker has to be conscious of that when they create things.
Thank you, sir. One of our colleague, Pradeep Subedi, he has a question for you. Pradeep, over to you. Please unmute your mic and ask your question, please.
Hello, namaskar sir. Like I'm Pradeep Subedi. Like I have a question that due to this pandemic, like our film industry is also affected, and like Nepal film industry have got so many problems in due to this pandemic. And what might be the like solution after this pandemic, and like to distribute our film industry, like our films like Bollywood, Hollywood, like what can be the things that can be done by our industry.
You're actually right. Pandemic like this is especially our field, cinema field will be highly affected because even after things get a little better, uh, we will not be able to function. So our field is the field that is going to be highly affected. A lot of noise, I can't hear. Yeah. So the field of cinema is going to be highly affected because this is a work that we have to do and that involves a lot of people. We always have to do it in group, and acting involves a lot of intimacy. Being in close proximity with people, with actors, actresses, and the crew. So with a pandemic like this, uh, so it might take some time for us to come back to normal. But again, we might have to, again, like I said, readjust and rethink how we're going to operate in post-pandemic days, because we'll have to do it very cautiously and carefully. I don't know. The next alternative might be to use technologies like this to have our creative work, release in different kind of sources, using different kind of technologies. That could be another idea. But movie making is going to be affected very badly. And unless things really come to normal, we may not be able to function in a full swing. Because even after things get a little easier, with this social distancing and all that, movie making is going to face a lot of challenges. Because our work is done with a whole lot of people, by interacting with people, with a lot of people getting together into a small space even. So that way, I think our field is going to be affected. But the new situation will probably demand new ways and new invention and new thought process. And we may take some other alternative routes to express ourselves creatively. Maybe use the technological mediums. Maybe we'll have to create something like Netflix and movies and stuff like that to get to our audience. And we may need to shoot our films in a different way by using limited people and limited resources. So that could be the situation, because I can't see movie industry, movie field like ours coming to a full swing in immediate future, unless things get really, really normal. Unless there's a vaccine and people feel very secured and people say, okay, now it's not going to be a problem. By interacting with strangers, by people coming in close proximity with strangers, it's not a problem anymore. Until that situation comes, I think movies are not going to come back to full swing. So we'll have to be highly creative and reinvent ourselves, maybe. And let's see how we're going to reinvent.
Anamika ma'am?
I think the session is going to be pretty long because everyone has a question, but after this question, I think the session will be ending after a small vote of thanks will be given by Sonam ma'am, and then
for sure. My battery is getting ready to go.
End this session because it is going to be pretty long. Because everybody wants to ask a question from him, but we should give him some relief as well. So my question to you is, one of your dream which is still unfulfilled.
I have a very different outlook on life, and I think after coming to this point in life, more than dreams, what you intend to do is your life basically goes in phases. There's a phase when you are in school or college, there's a phase when you are in profession, and then you reach a certain height in profession. That phase ends, and then you are again faced with another phase. So my dream is basically just to make every phase successful as much as I can. So I have gone through several phases in my life. You know, I've gone through school, I've gone through college, I've gone through 30 years of professional life, and now I'm in a one turning point of my professional life and about to enter another phase. So I want that phase to be successful. And after that, there might yet be another phase of being really old and retired and this. So I want that phase to be successful. So my dream is basically, you know, I take life on phases, and if I can make every phase successful in its own way, then my life dream is fulfilled. You know? That is my life dream. Because life is not a one marathon race. Life is a lot of relay races. And every races, if you can achieve something in every races, then you are successful. I've gone through a few races. I have a few more races to run. And I'm just hoping that those few races that I have to run will be satisfactory to me. And then my whole life will have a nice, my life dream. That is my dream for my whole life will be successful. Yeah. So I'm just hoping, you know, I think at this moment I'm in a certain turning point of my life, professionally, age-wise. So now I'm going to face this new phase, and I want that to be successful. And that is my immediate dream, to make this phase successful.
We wish you all the best, sir, from VS International family. May your dream come true.
Thank you so
Over
much.
to you, Sonam ma'am, for your vote of thanks.
Thank you, ma'am. We actually had a lot of questions coming up, but still, due to the time limitations and all,
Yeah.
I'd like to say sorry to our participants who were willing to ask the questions. We're really sorry for that. And as a vote of thanks, I would like to thank you, sir. It was a very indeed an enlightening session for us. We would like to thank you with an immense pleasure that you came here, you gave your precious time to us, and your illuminating thoughts will always be remembered. And we feel very lucky to have you with us in this online session. And you explained about the youth, the challenges, the opportunities. You inspired our youth to be ready for the future after the pandemic also. And the ways you told about the movie industry, and we also came to know about your dreams that are unfulfilled. We really hope that you fulfill all your dreams, sir. And during this type of crucial situation in our world, we can say. So it was really thankful to you, sir, for giving us so much of information and insight. We are really enlightened by your thoughts, sir. Thank you so much from all our participants. And thank you, participants, for joining us. Thank you so much.
Thank you, everybody. Bye-bye. Thank you so much.
Over to you, Anamika, ma'am.
Thank you, sir. Your mantra, open to change, reinvent, will keep in mind. Thank you so much for being a part
Thank
of
you.
this show.
Thank you. Bye-bye. Bye-bye.